Hello everybody and welcome back to another video for the day. We're going back to r/Neckbeard stories, and I'm actually kind of wondering, do you guys prefer the Neckbeard stories subreddit or the Tales of Neckbeard? Because they kind of seem like just counterparts of each other, but one for some reason does better than the other, so I'm kind of curious. Please do let me know down below. And if you want to be absolutely amazing, show your support, and to see more videos like this in the near future, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment down below, start up some wholesome internet discussions, and if you have not already, subscribe and turn on notifications. Okie dokie, let's go. Also, fun fact, this is actually one story that is in two parts because it would feel kind of weird to leave you guys on a cliffhanger. And it comes from username Awkward Boheme. Living with two neckbeards and a legbeard. Part 1. Hello, wonderful people of Reddit. I have been planning to make an account and post here for a while now, but life always seems to get in the way. But now I finally have some free time. I figured, why not? Quick cast list as follows. Mike, Neckbeard 1, tall, greasy, hefty, into anime. He was also against dental hygiene that he would end up losing teeth and getting dentures, which he'd often leave in coffee cups, and that's all I'll say about that. Self-proclaimed pro gamer, about 21 at the time of this particular tale, also dating Janice. Declan, Neckbeard 2, a bit shorter than Mike, frequented the gym but refused to shower afterwards, and had the signature neckbeard. Obsessed with Gotham, he's Mike's younger brother and moved in with us when their mom kicked him out. Generally a creepy person, doesn't make an appearance in this particular tale, but trust me, he's just as bad as the other two. Janice, the legbeard of the story, tall and greasy like her partner, and also had a lack of dental hygiene, though she hadn't lost her teeth yet. They were just yellow and hairy. Hairy teeth? What the shit? Like that's any better. Has a serious, not like other girls attitude and smoke like 20 cigarettes a day. That's not an issue on its own, but when she smokes in the flat with all of the windows closed, yeah, it's not pleasant. Same age as Mike. Carrie, my best friend, taller gal, which she loves to annoy me about, and absolutely stunning, not just saying that because she's my bestie. Theater geek like me, and my companion in the absolute heck hole that was out flat share with the other three. She's also gay, which is important in some of these tales, because you know what creeps can be like. 19 here. Me, awkwardly theater geek, a gay guy who is so pale he wears so much eyeliner I could fit in with the Addams family. 5'3.5", yes, Carrie, the half counts, your narrator for this train wreck. Also 19 at the point. We actually hadn't been planning to move in with Mike and Janet at first. Carrie and I had been planning to move out for college with two guys from our course, one of them being our friend Brian. Brian was friends with both myself and Carrie and the Neckbeard Bros, which is how we met. Anyway, Brian had a couple of family emergencies which had resulted in him having to drop out last minute, and because the other guy didn't really know us that well, he decided to move in with the others of his friends, which I completely understand. I wouldn't want to live with two people I had barely met before. This was when Brian mentioned that Mike and Janice were looking to move out of Mike's parents' home and suggested that we should maybe flat share with them. Now, we knew about the hygiene issue these two had, but Mike was always complaining about the shower in his parents' house being broken, and so we put the bad hygiene down to that. It didn't explain the lack of oral hygiene, but we figured, hey, maybe they'll be okay. Maybe we can politely convince them to brush their teeth. Plus, it's not like it's out teeth, so at worst, we could just move away if the smell got too bad. Besides, we were getting pretty desperate. We had already put down a deposit for the flat and wouldn't be able to afford all of the rent if it was just the two of us. So we agreed to flat share with Mike and Janice. How bad could it be? As it turns out, pretty effing bad. The pair were pretty weird from the beginning. For example, when they first came to have a look around the flat, they seemed pretty disappointed that there were only 2 bedrooms. They joked about how fun it would have been if we all had to share a room. Yeah, no. They also suggested at first that Carrie should share a room with Janice and Mike should share a room with me, despite the fact that they are literally a couple. Needless to say, we shut that idea down pretty damn quick. To be completely honest, neither myself or Carrie were particularly excited to be moving in with these two, but aside from their odd room ideas, they seemed harmless enough. Besides, we were desperate, and also we began living together. We realized fairly quick that their lack lack of hygiene went further than just personal grooming. Their room was a mess. Carrie and I made a point of establishing some boundaries right away, one of them being that we would not enter each other's bedrooms without permission. To their credit, both Mike and Janice made a point of not entering myself and Carrie's bedroom for a while and would knock on the door to get our attention. However, this didn't save Carrie and I from having to endure the absolute nuclear wasteland that was their bedroom. Every now and then, they would call us into their rooms to show us some YouTube video they found funny, or to make plans, or ask us questions. God forbid they actually leave their room to talk to us themselves. The room was, to put it lightly, a pigsty. Takeaway containers littered the floor with food spilling out onto the floor to rot. Unpackaged boxes were piled up all over the place. They were still there after 2 months. The bed was always a mess and appeared to be covered in, bodily fluids, and the room, well, most of the flat honestly, constantly smelled of smoke thanks to Janet's habits of smoking indoors with all of the windows closed. There was also the underlying scent of stale pish, which honestly still makes me gag just thinking about it. We later found out that Mike was often so reluctant to go to the bathroom and leave his games that he'd piss in bottles and just leave them there until Janice got rid of them. Sorry for the disgusting visuals, but hey, if I have to deal with the knowledge, then so do you. However, Carrie and I figured out that if you open up every other window in the flat, lightly scented candles, bleach everything at least like twice a day, and use an S-load of air fresheners, then you can somewhat cover up the smell that came from their den. We managed to get by pretty well for the first few months of living with them, ignoring the poor hygiene of course, until Mike and Janice decided that we weren't just their roommates, we were their best friends. Yay, lucky us. But not just any best friends, oh no, best friends that they wanted to bond with. See, when Mike and Janice decided that we had been getting closer, we hadn't by the way, they had begun to inform us of their desire for a threesome/foursome. Yeah, not good at all. At first, we just sort of laughed it off, thinking they were messing with us, but no. They had several instances where they acted inappropriately towards us, and I'm not gonna lie to you folks, Carrie had to deal with a heck of a lot more. Janice started almost following Carrie around constantly. She started off just rambling about whatever anime/movie she was watching at the time, and basically forcing Carrie to listen, but she later moved on to more invasive topics. There were even points where she walked in on Carrie whilst she was in the bath, and to sit to talk with her. Our bathroom didn't have a lock, and the landlord was weird about the idea of us installing one ourselves. Every time we brought it up to him, he'd tell us he was looking into it. Anyways, Carrie spoke to her about it several times and politely asked Janice not to bother her whilst she was in the bath, to which Janice responded, "It's not a big deal. I wouldn't mind if you walked in on me when I was in the bath." I got to the point where I had to sit outside the bathroom door whilst Carrie was in the bath just to stop Janice from barging in. I didn't mind doing this for Carrie's sake, but I shouldn't have had to. Anyone else would realize that barging in on your roommate when they're bathing is completely inappropriate. There was also the time they found out that Carrie is a trans gal. Mike made a remark that he'd be the best at pleasuring an oversized lady part, and decided to demonstrate what he meant by removing his dentures. Excuse me while I go throw up. I think everyone knows how absolutely messed up that is. Like, why in the heck would you ever say that to another human being? This comment created an extremely uncomfortable atmosphere, and Carrie made up an excuse to escape to our bedroom. After getting yelled at both by me and then by Brian after I texted him about what happened, Mike sheepishly apologized, promising that he wouldn't make those type of jokes again. Yeah, right. And Carrie accepted it. Not because she believed him, as I later found out, but because we didn't really have much other choice. There were no other affordable places near our work and college that we could move to, and neither of us had the option of going back home. We also couldn't exactly kick Mike and Janice out, as their names were on the lease and they had been paying their fair share of rent. We were stuck. Carrie has also recommended that I add in the Valentine's story as she'd still pretty pissed off about it. Basically, Valentine's Day had come around and Mike had been talking about having a romantic night with Janice. Both Carrie and myself were both single and had decided to go out for a drink with some friends so they'd get to have the flat to themselves, and tried not to think about the cleanup that would be required in the morning. Anyways, long story short, I hadn't eaten much before we started drinking and would end up getting drunk a lot quicker than intended. When we had gotten home, I was completely trashed. I'm a giggly drunk though, thankfully, and Carrie was pretty tipsy. She helped me sit down on the couch and got me a glass of water before deciding to get herself changed first before putting me to bed. Carrie told me after she had gotten her PJs on, we walked back into the living room to find Mike and Janice sitting either side of me. Janice was playing with my hair, something that normally comforts me, but not when a creepy legbeard lady is the one doing it, and Mike was talking to me. Things like, "You're completely wasted, aren't you, and can't handle all that drink," but in the same tone you'd use when talking to a child. Drunk me apparently found this amusing, and I just sat there giggling. Carrie wasted no time, telling them that she had to get me to bed, dragging me off the couch and into our bedroom. She said she didn't know what it was, but something about the way they were acting really weirded her out. They also spilled sweet and sour sauce all over the living room rug, not something that you want to find out when you're heading to the kitchen in the morning with bare feet. Anyway, this is getting pretty long, so I think I'll stop it there. I just realized that I didn't include Declan in this post, so I'll include him in some of his creepy antics in the next one. Hope you folks enjoyed. I really need to vent. Stuff like this and the whole having roommates with people you don't really know 100% of their stuff about, it feels kind of weird in general, and this goes for both like flatmates and even the conventions roommates, because I very much only room with people that either I know or I just save up the money ahead of time and just get the entire room for myself, because honestly, I'd rather not be sleeping in the same proximity as people I don't know about. But like I said, there is a part 2 to this, which I am about to start, because honestly, I didn't want to leave on a cliffhanger. That just kind of seems like a douchey move. Unless it's like a 5-part story, I am very unlikely to ever just leave a story without finishing it. Hello Reddit peoples, I'm back with another tale of life with 2 neckbeards and a legbeard. I said in my last post that I'd be including our second neckbeard in this post, as he has yet to make an appearance, so here it goes. I want to say this tale takes place about 5 or 6 months after we first started living with Mike and Janice. I can't remember the exact date. Around this time, Mike's little brother Declan had been arguing with his mom constantly. He had told us all that she was being unreasonable, yelling at him for minor things, and had been trying to bully him into getting a job that he didn't want. Due to this, they'd been arguing non-stop, and eventually his mom had told him he had to find somewhere else to live. We later heard through a friend of the family that she'd actually kicked Declan out because he had dropped out of college without telling her, refused to get a job, and just wanted to sit around drinking and watching telly all day. He'd also put several holes in the walls and doors in his drunken state. Mike didn't want to see his little brother struggling, so he and Janice talked to myself and Carrie, and guilt trip convinced us to let him stay with us for a while, and so our second neckbeard moved in. Unlike Janice and Mike, who spent the majority of their time in their bedroom, thus making it easier to contain the smell, Declan had taken up residence on our sofa bed in the living room. He opted to spend most days lying on his sofa bed, eating and drinking and watching telly through our bloody Netflix account, and generally did nothing to contribute to the house. But hey, what did we expect? We'd already been living with his lazy older brother for months. Why would Declan be any different? He was also more aggressive than Mike, as seen by his habit of punching holes in his walls at his mom's house. There was one instance where he got really snippy at Carrie for moving some empty Chinese takeaway containers off of his bed. At this point, we were still desperately trying to keep the flat somewhat clean. Apparently, she shouldn't have been touching his belongings, because apparently takeaway containers are now collectibles. I don't really feel comfortable writing down what he said next, but Carrie told me it's fine. It shows how much of a piece of S he is. You see, Carrie is quiet, but she won't take people's S if they talk to her like that, so she argued back, to which Declan responded with, "Just because you have a D doesn't mean you get to talk back to me like that. You are the woman here, so start acting like it. The next time you want to move something, you'll effing ask." I had no idea idea that this happened until a few months back. Carrie had said she didn't want to worry me. If I had known, I would have flipped. At the very least, he never spoke to her like that again until we moved out, but that's a whole another story. He even apologized to her afterwards, buying her perfume and chocolate to make it up to her. Carrie didn't accept these gifts, but told him he was willing to move forward since, again, we didn't really have anywhere to go. After this incident, he mostly focused his anger on the occasional phone calls he had with his mom, that poor woman, and sometimes Mike, though they often got it over quickly. Declan was, like Mike and Janice, a creep, though he never focused on anyone in particular. Oh no, you see, Declan liked to focus his flirting efforts on any random girl in the street that he found attractive. I remember one instance where I'd been stuck with Declan and HMV, and he tried to work his magic on the girl at the till. I had been looking for a gift for my little cousin, leaving Declan to his own devices as I had a little look around. When I found what I was looking for, I headed back to the till to pay for it, only to find Declan flirting. I think that's what he called it anyway, with the very clearly uncomfortable employee. At one point, he had even reached over to try to grab her hand to admire her nails. I headed over to pay for my things, managed to make Declan move to the side, further away from the girl at the till. We made small talk whilst she scanned everything, and I managed to mouth a quick sorry to her, subtly tilting my head in Declan's direction when he wasn't looking. She chuckled a bit at this, waving me off. I swear to God, I thought Declan was going to snap his neck and how quickly he looked up to glare at us. I thought that was the end of it until Mike asked if he could have a serious talk with me that night. You know that episode of Friends where Ross flips out at Chandler for stealing the pizza delivery girl from him just because he acts like a normal human being and pays for the food? Yeah, this is that kind of situation we had here. Declan had gone crying to Mike, telling him that he was flirting with a really attractive girl and I just barged in and ruined it for him and made him look bad. Darling, I think you did that to yourself. I told Mike what had happened, and surprisingly, he believed me, but he asked me if I'd be able to just leave him be next time. As Declan gets really excited when he gets to talk to girls, yeah, I'm sure he does. I told Mike that I wouldn't want to upset Declan, but if he's making someone uncomfortable, then I'm not just gonna stand there. Needless to say, Declan didn't speak to me for a few days after that. It was heaven. It was around this time that Janice and Mike had decided to get a bit more brave with their attempts to win Carrie and I over. I guess having another creep in the house made them a bit more confident. Around a month or so after Declan moved in, there was a death in my family. I really don't want to go into a lot of detail as it's a sore spot for me, but basically there had been some family drama that resulted in me not being informed about the funeral, and as a result, I missed it. I was absolutely distraught at this point, even had to take a couple of weeks off of work, who were thankfully very understanding. Carrie was an absolute godsend during this time, and spent the majority of her free time taking care of me, which I still feel bad about. He shouldn't have to, but this wouldn't be the post if the clan didn't do something to make it worse. It started off kind of subtle. I'd broken a glass one afternoon and had broken down crying. That's the kind of headspace I was in. You know, where minor things going wrong feel like the end of the world. Janice had heard the glass breaking and came to check on me. At first, she did what most other people would do in this situation. She picked up some of the glass on the floor and checked over my hand for any cuts. A couple of scratches, but nothing serious. But that was about it for acting like a normal human being. She asked me if I wanted to watch a movie to cheer me up. I politely declined and told her I just wanted to go to bed, maybe even try to do some college work if I felt up for it. She ignored me and started talking about how she had just downloaded the Harry Potter box set, and didn't I just love Harry Potter? That'd definitely cheer me up. I again told her that I really didn't feel like it. She again ignored me, talking about how she'd make me feel all better. By this point, Mike was in the kitchen with us, asking what's wrong. It was at this point that it dawned on me that I was stuck at home with these two as Carrie was out working. Declan was out for a job center appointment and presumably to harass more random people. Mike, of course, agreed that the best thing for me to do was watch a movie with him. He eventually resorted to picking me up and carrying me to the now folded up sofa bed. Might I remind you that this was the same sofa bed that Declan had been practically living in since he got here. A sofa bed that was contaminated with bits of rotting food, spilled drinks, and Declan's sweat shadow. If I hadn't been such an emotional wreck, I'd have booked at the thought of it, but the state of the couch was the least of my concerns. Janice and Mike sat down on either side of me. Mike had an arm wrapped around both mine and Janet's shoulders, pulling me closer to the unbearable scent of BO, and Janice leaned on me and moved her legs until she was half sitting on my lap, effectively pinning me to the couch. I'd given up at this point and just had opted to just try to enjoy the movie as much as I could while trying to block out the vile scent that was bombarding me from all sides. Then they decided they were hungry. Thankfully, they didn't try to cook. Instead, Janice brought through some crisps and chocolate bars. I wasn't really hungry, so I just sat back and tried to avoid the crumbs they were wiping on their clothes. At some point, Mike had tried to feed me. Not as in asking if I wanted a pack of crisps. Oh, no, that's too normal. He held the crisps in my mouth and tried to get me to eat. Now, if you folks read the last post, you'll know that Mike's personal hygiene wasn't far from the best, and there was no way in heck I was gonna eat anything out of his hands. I had gotten a bit frustrated and decided to just grab an unopened packet of crisps and have a couple just to get Mike to leave me alone, but this apparently wasn't the right thing to do. He took the packet out of my hand and held up another crisp for me to eat. When I refused to take it, Mike said something that I genuinely didn't realize was as messed up until I was telling Carrie about it the next day. He had said, "You have to eat something. Do you really think insert deceased family member's name here would want to see you like this?" He literally used my recently deceased relative to try and guilt trip me into letting him feed me. What the F? I literally was going to eat, just not out of his hand. Thankfully, Carrie had been working in a school kitchen at this time, so she arrived home around 2-ish to save me from the greasy couple. Sorry this got really long. I was going to add the story about the time Declan tried to save a woman from her husband in a Burger King to kind of lighten the mood a bit. I mean, that lady put him in his place, but I'll write about it in the next post as this got pretty long. Bit of an abrupt ending, but I'm pretty tired. Sorry guys. Yeah, that's honestly, I really hope things have gotten better since then, not just like with those guys, but like getting the heck out of Dodge with them. And yeah, it really is surprising just how many people can not have any boundaries when it comes to morals whatsoever, just whether or not you are just not being able to take care of yourself, whether it be like leaving your room a mess or leaving other people's room a mess. That's not cool. But with that, that's going to have to be it with this video. If you guys want to be absolutely amazing, show your support, and to see more content like this in the near future, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment down below to start up the wholesome internet discussions. Also, I've been kind of debating for these storytime format videos regarding the gameplay footage in the background. Let me know if there's a video game you should have me try out, because I'm always up for playing new games. And if you have not already, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye.